everybody. This is a talk with Emma Saunders. I think you'll enjoy it. I just want to give a little disclaimer before you watch. First thing is, it is a little sensitive, a little traumatic, her story. I know some of you are very sensitive to that type of thing. She did experience akathisia. So I want to just give you a heads up. So if you feel sensitive, you could skip through that part or you could mute it when she starts talking about it. But she did have 3 visits in a psychiatric hospital. So it was a little traumatic, I just want you to be aware of that. And then the second thing is, this is not medical advice. Emma did a reinstatement at 8 months off of her benzo, and it basically saved her life. I know that goes counterintuitive to a lot of advice out there, like you should do it right away or you shouldn't wait so long. But there are a few cases that have, it has helped them even when far out. So please, just don't take it as like, it works for everyone, or, she did it under advisement of very good medical advice and people in her family and people that supported her and loved her. And she weighed those pros and cons and she made that decision for herself. So I just want to start with that. So just to let you know before you get into the video. All right, thanks. Hello, everyone out there. My name is Angie Peacock. I'm a psychiatric drug withdrawal consultant and a healing coach. If you are viewing from YouTube right now, could you please do me a huge favor and just hit like and subscribe? I know it's a stupid thing, but it helps people see the video more, which will help bring awareness to this. Please do that for me if you can. If you're on Facebook, just like it or share it, something like that. All right. Today, we are talking to Emma Saunders. And you guys know that I like to bring conversations that are important to our community, topics that are interesting, fascinating. I think Emma has an amazing story. She's still healing. She's right in the thick of it. But I just wanted to bring you a piece of her, so to speak, today. She's a beautiful person. I can't wait to talk to her. So Emma, welcome.
Thank you, Angie. That's a lovely intro.
You're welcome. And let me read your bio. Oh, go ahead. What?
I said right back at you.
Oh, thank you. All right, let me read Emma's bio so everybody knows who we're talking to. Emma Saunders is 36 years old. She's from London, and she's a creative with main sources of work as an actor and photographer. She was prescribed Ativan for tinnitus during the pandemic for 6 months, and she was subsequently cold turkeyed off under a doctor's advice. She experienced a severe withdrawal that got her sectioned 3 times, 2 of them by force. She was plugged with a concoction of drugs, pulled off and put on, and experienced many otherworldly experiences. However, somehow she's still here. And she's still standing by a real miracle and feels passionately about making a difference. She feels that you can't see and experience a world like this and not speak up. Through her art, she has started to create, with a documentary on the way, all about the dangers of psychiatric medication. She intends to show the rawness of the experience coming off, as well as using her acting background to make videos about her experience. She intends to keep speaking up as long as she is here. Together, we are stronger. To learn more about Emma and her work, visit beatingthebenzo.com. And I know she's on Instagram as Beating the Benzo. So what do you think when you hear that, when I read that? I mean, that's heavy.
I know. Also, it's just so surreal because, like we were just saying, the first moment I realized this was a thing was because I found a video of you on YouTube when I was on the drug and I was thinking something was wrong. And I found this video of you talking about it, like you said, 7 years ago. And that was the first moment I was like, this is a thing. And now I'm here, somehow still alive and talking to you. So it's like a real big, like 360.
Wow. It's so strange.
So strange.
It's funny because, I mean, you're kind of doing the same thing that I did. I was trying to document what was happening to me. But that very first video that I made on YouTube, somebody begged me to do it. And I was like, I don't have anything to say. I mean, people are going to think I'm strange. I can't record. And I just sat on the floor of my living room and I just started talking. That was it. It wasn't anything fancy or special. So I always tell people, at least tell your story if you can, even if it's anonymously. So that's kind of what you're doing right now, isn't it? Yeah.
100%. And I think, because a lot of people I think are quite like ashamed that they're going through this because a lot of people don't believe you and they think you're crazy. Whereas I was just like, I don't care. Because I think a lot of people deserted me anyway. So I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. All right. So let's start at the very beginning. I think it's fascinating that you got put on during the pandemic, because as soon as the pandemic happened, I said, oh shit, here comes more prescriptions. Everybody's anxious, everybody's depressed, everybody's scared, as they should be. And that's when, at least in the United States, antidepressant and benzo prescriptions went up 30 to 40%. So you were a person that was prescribed during the pandemic. So tell me, like, what brought you to benzos?
I did think that. I thought I dread to think. So it was my dad's private doctor, who I've been with for, well, actually, I'd only been with once before. And I trusted him because my dad, and because it was the pandemic, I couldn't go to the NHS because everything was just full, like rammed. And I got tinnitus. So I got COVID and then I got tinnitus. So I think it was connected. I'm not sure. And I couldn't sleep. It'd been about 3 days, broken sleep, but nothing like severe. I just went to basically try and like figure out what this was, if I needed to have it looked at. And he just basically said like, oh, I've got this you can take that will help you sleep. I give it to old women. It's completely safe. I've got loads of patients on this. And, I just didn't think anything of it. And I'd never heard of it before. So I just, again, like, it's weird. It's like, you're so naive. I just trusted him, didn't think twice. And that's how it began.
And it's so deceiving because it's such a tiny little pill, like it's
Tiny.
this tiny little thing. Oh God. So what happened? Like you started taking it. Did it work? Did it not work? What happened?
So I remember like taking it at night to sleep. And I remember being quite scared of it actually, because it kind of completely knocked me out. Like, oof. I was like, I didn't quite like the sensation of it, but the doctor had told me that if I didn't sleep like properly, that my tinnitus would get worse. So I thought I was taking it and it would help me. It's like, oh, this is going to make my tinnitus better. So I would take it every night. And then within a month, it basically stopped working pretty quickly for me. And I became unwell like pretty quickly, because I know people can take it for, years and not notice, or months, or for me, it was 1 month. And I started just to stop sleeping. So I would get up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 3 a.m., like, but with terror, like this unnatural terror, like throughout my body. And I was like, oh my God. But of course, I thought it was me. I was like, I'm going crazy. It's the pandemic. Maybe I'm having a moment. And yeah, that sort of kept going. And at that time, I'd flown to Spain to be with my dad. He lives in Spain. And so we went to a Spanish doctor, and she then said, look, you're clearly going through something. And she gave me, what was it? Citalopram. So again, this is where the pill upon pill. And I actually didn't want to take it because I was just, I knew what that was, an antidepressant. I knew, and I didn't want that. So I was quite resistant to that for a couple of months, but I just kept getting worse. This like terror, like this, it was in the morning and then it would go all day. So all day I was now in a state of terror. So I did try the antidepressant in the end, but of course it just added fuel to the fire. And I mean, I can't even explain the bodily sensations I went through when I took that. And then I was just in a mess. It was a mess of nervous system, trying to sort out what this was, Googling everything in a complete panic, being completely gaslit, like left, right, and center. My dad, I think, doesn't really understand. I suppose like he was brainwashed himself with the medication. And I get that now. But at the time, it feels incredibly hurtful. People not believing you when you're like suffering like that. You're like, no, but something isn't right. So I just wasn't met with much belief like anywhere. So I just had no one.
So did you figure it out that it's got to be the pills, and then everybody around you didn't believe you, or did you still think I'm mentally ill now? Like,
so it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because when I look back, like, because your thoughts can be totally altered, as you know. I was like, why am I thinking about like death all the time? And like, it was so severe, and this fear, like, and you can't believe that a pill would do that to you as well, can you? Like, this can't be true.
It has to be me.
And because you've never seen a video of someone in withdrawal. So you just like, you're like, well, this isn't real. But my intuition knew that it wasn't, this isn't right. So I tried my best. I mean, I fought until the end. Like, even when I was in a psychosis, I was like, it's the lorazepam.
Oh my God. And they were like, look, she really is crazy. She thinks
she's
it's the
crazy.
drug.
They all thought I was a drug addict and I'd gone to a festival and taken too much, whatever, and I was like, it's the lorazepam. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of familiar with your story. So can you share with the audience as much as you want, but when the pills started making you worse and you started looking for answers, tell me, what was your interaction with the system like?
So as in like the doctors?
Yeah, as in like You were at the NHS, right? This is in
Yeah.
UK. Okay. So like you'd go to the doctor, you'd report, this is what's going on with me. And then tell me, like, take me through psych wards. Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah. So basically what happened was I was in Spain, came back to the UK because the pandemic had kind of basically ended. We were sort of in that phase of coming out. And I had stopped the lorazepam. It'd been about 4 days. I moved into a new flat, and all of a sudden I got hit with the full whack. So I was already unwell, but then it was the full whack hit me of the withdrawal in my friend's flat. And it was very soon, maybe a week later, that I was completely like suicidal, wasn't sleeping, pacing, akathisia, everything. We're in this tiny flat. My friend is working from home, and it's just like she ended up calling what's it called, the emergency, like the ambulance to come round.
Yeah.
They came round, and I was met with an NHS kind of ambulance woman being like, well, what, you've been taking this drug, what do you think you're doing? And it was kind of like, I'd already seen the videos of yours, but it was like, oh my God. Like, she was like, why have you been taking this drug for so long? We don't give this out, and all this. And I was like, and she was like, well, you've got yourself into a bit of a pickle, haven't you? And it was all very kind of patronizing. And I think because I look quite young and like, I'm just some stupid little girl that like started taking this pill, I was really like not respected at any stage of this. And they didn't offer any help. And for a long time, my friends were trying to get me into psychiatric units because they thought I was having a breakdown, but they wouldn't take me because they only take you when you're like actually
suicidal or homicidal,
or like, I don't know, or you're in a, So yes, so that went on for a while. And basically I just progressively got worse and worse and worse until it got to a point where oh God, yeah, it's a bit kind of complicated, but I ended up going back to Spain because obviously I couldn't be in this state. I couldn't drive, I couldn't speak to people, somehow got on a plane back to my dad's. And that's where things got really dark, because I think once you stop sleeping and you've got the akathisia, a human being cannot survive. And
they can, it's just,
well, they can, but
it's just not pretty, trust me. Yeah.
Sorry, what am I saying? I mean, I survived.
You survived. Yeah.
You can't like be around people. That's
can't function. You can't take a shower. You can't drive. You can't make food for yourself. You can't talk to your father in a calm manner. You're hysterical and frantic and running around the house with your, like a chicken with the head cut off.
Exactly. Yes. And it feels like the whole time, like say, like, oh my God, how am I going to survive? How am I going to survive? But then
can't do this.
Yeah. I just kept going. And basically it got to the stage where my dad just couldn't deal with it anymore. He was just like, I don't know what to do with you. And he took me to a hospital in Spain. Then he decided to section me. And in Spain, it's like quite brutal there. They're just like, they're very like, oh, we've got some medication that would be really great for her. And I was like, no. I was like, Dad, no, I can't have any more. Like I had explained it all. I was like, I can't have any more. This is what's happened. No. So then I got these security guards, like literally lifting me up, put me into a wheelchair, strapped me in, and that was it. They wheeled me off into this ward, and the things that went on in there, I mean, obviously in different countries it's totally different. This ward was, I think, I mean, yeah, it felt like there was some pretty dangerous people in there with me. And it was just absolutely terrifying. And they plugged me with lots and lots of medication. They had restraints on the beds. They would lock you in the rooms. No one spoke any English as well. So a lot of the time I would pass out. I kept on passing out. I had this thing called hypertension because they were giving me so many medications that my body just was like shorting out. Wow. And I remember thinking, like, waking up on the floor, looking up, being like, I'm going to die in here, like, this is it. Wow. Because like the sensations I felt around my body were just not normal. I was crawling along the floor. I felt like I was melting or like being crushed by the universe, like just crazy stuff. Wow. And I remember like being in there. I was only in there for 3 days, but I managed to like speak to the woman. She's like the head nurse. And I was like, I feel absolutely fine. I'm absolutely fine, actually.
I'm ready to go.
Yes. I managed to pause. I was like, I've had a really good stay here. Found it's really helped me. I want to leave here and do some therapy and, like.
Oh, I get you turned your actress on.
I try, and beneath it, I was like melting. And she decided to let me go. And that's how I got out of there. Anyway.
Saved your own life with that one.
That was, I could have been in there. That could have been it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Completely, with the way they were treating me. And came back to the UK because things were getting really bad. And this is when I ended up with my mum, who I don't normally stay with. Things are a bit tense there, so it wasn't a great place to be. And oh my God, basically the psychosis kind of went into a place of, I thought I was dead. So I actually thought I'd left this universe and I was in hell. And I was like, oh, I'm in hell. Like, this
I mean,
is
you kind of were though.
yeah,
It
I
is
was in
hell.
hell, right?
We were in hell.
And then
Yes.
the mind kind of tried to work it out. It was like, I'm in hell. At one point, I thought I was Hitler. I don't know what was going on in my mind. I think it's just trying to work it out. I was like, how could I be in this much pain and this much suffering? But anyway, it just was like a loop. And I remember my mum, she didn't actually want to section me, but in the end, doctors would come round and they would watch me and they'd be like, we've never seen anything like this before. Like, she's the most unwell person we've ever seen. And eventually, because in the NHS, they don't have many beds, and like, so they didn't actually, I think they don't really want to, have people in there. They're trying to get people out all the time. And then in the end, they were like, okay, we'll take her, because what happened was, I think I got down to about, I want to say 5 or 6 stone. And like, there was nothing of me. I wasn't eating anymore. I mean, I was close to death. And the doctor was like, we don't get her in and rehydrate her and help her, then she's going to go.
Yeah.
So that's why I then ended up the second time in a hospital. But then also, once you're in there, they just treat you like you're this villain. Like, you're this like awful person. It's like, and I remember thinking, like, I haven't done anything. Like, why are you treating me like this? They handcuffed me. They put me in this like little cage in this van, and then they drove me off to Springfield Hospital, which I cannot believe that place still exists, but it's like evil,
Wow.
Ward 2. I mean, I guess because I was in such a state, they put me in with all the other people that were at that level, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, it was really scary to be in that space. And every day, like, I just remember these nurses coming in with like this big load of meds and like stuffing them in my mouth, just being like, get them in. I would be
oh
like,
my God,
oh, no.
so traumatizing.
I mean, the whole thing. But what I found so bizarre is that, like, when someone's suffering like that, like, I wasn't dangerous. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I wasn't like trying to hurt myself. I was just in a state, and I was treated like, I don't know, just an awful person.
Like an animal. Like an animal.
Or like, I don't know, like I'd done something wrong, like a prisoner. Just the whole thing. I was like, this isn't right, Not once.
I have to bring this up because the last time I was in the hospital, when I was cold turkeyed off, they treated me the same way in the United States, but I voluntarily went to the emergency room and I said, something's wrong. I think I am suicidal. I need help. That's what we're told to do. Right. And then I was greeted with 2 police officers and a plastic wheelchair. They took my clothes away, and this might be TMI. I don't care. I'm an open book, but I was like, okay, it's that time of month for me. Can I go to my car to get my women's supplies? And they're like, oh, no, absolutely not. And I said, okay, well, can you send a police officer to my car? It's in my bag and on the front seat of my car. Nope. Like, they would not even get my own feminine products. Like,
what I mean,
I don't understand. I came here voluntarily. I am not dangerous. I'm asking for help, and you're going to treat me like this.
Yes, completely. Oh my gosh. Because even voluntarily, you're treated like, you're not allowed to even to have like a moisturizer, because you might hit someone with that. You
can't brush your teeth without being watched. Yeah. It's not a therapeutic place. And as I can hear in your story, it gave you more trauma. Absolutely.
Yes. And also because my nervous system, God knows what happened to it, but it was just like a melt. I feel like it was like a lava lamp, like melting, and like, they just kept on plugging me with more and more meds. And I had looked a lot on Facebook about this happening to people, and people not coming back out, and people dying, and
oh my God,
I do think, wow, like, I cannot believe I didn't die because of what I went through, like, and what I was experiencing. It's just wild. So yeah. And then the final one was Lavender Ward, and that one, again, horrific.
It sounds beautiful.
Doesn't it?
That's what they call it, Lavender Ward.
Lavender Ward. And they had like pictures of lavender everywhere. And it was so kind of like a juxtaposition as to what was actually going on,
God.
like
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
But again, just wild. Like I would keep saying like, help me, can someone help me, I was just, just constantly like, help me. And I remember this male nurse coming up to me saying, I know what I can help you with, and then held his dick. And I was like,
Oh my God.
and then I
No.
remember a male nurse spitting on me. One guy like locked me in the room. He kept on wanting to take my blood. I think he had some sadistic thing with blood. Like just
this sounds sick, but did you happen to report this? Have you reported this? Okay.
So
good.
like when I came out, I reported it, but of course, it was this helpline. You speak to someone and it's like probably no one,
nobody even
I
answers
don't believe
it.
that those things are taken seriously, to be honest.
Right. Wow. So then you get out of the third time, you go back to your mom's house or dad?
Yeah. So get out the third time because they literally were like, I was in there for 2 months, don't know what to do with her, nothing's working, like obviously because what was wrong with me wasn't what they thought or a diagnosis. And then so I'm at my mum's, I'm pacing around, and by this point I've got a friend called Hans who actually my dad knows. And I think he was the guy who basically made my dad believe that this was a thing, because Hans has a problem with antidepressants and he lives in Spain, and they were on like a boat trip one day and Hans was explaining it all. My dad was like, oh my God, my daughter's in a psychiatric unit at the moment. And I think the penny dropped for him. And then so Hans contacted me, and he's became my like kind of mentor, I guess, like my drug mentor, which I think is a great thing to have, isn't it? Like somebody who you trust and who totally gets it. And he totally got it. And even though I was in this horrendous place, I would speak to him and be crazy, like pacing the rooms, like, and he would say to me, Emma, why don't you just try and take the Ativan, like just a tiny bit, don't take a lot, just take a tiny bit, even like a crumb, like you could just see. And I was like, yeah, but I had taken it before, and the psychiatric units had given it to me. And like it didn't help initially, but actually in the third ward, I was given it in there, 2 milligrams of it. And I kind of came back to myself a little bit, and I had like normal thoughts, and I was like, this is weird. But then I would snap back again, back into the withdrawal. Anyway, so at my mum's, and I think, well, I've got nothing to lose. And at this point, obviously, as you do in this state, you're thinking about ways to basically like off yourself or just, it's like, the thing is I didn't want to die at all. I just wanted it to end. And so I've got this little bottle, and I'm like, so I took half of the pill, and within 30 minutes, I came back to how I'm talking to you now. And that is wild.
Well, and it goes against a lot of what the groups say, which is kind of why I wanted to talk to you about reinstatement.
Yeah.
They say like, don't reinstate after a certain period of time, like after the first month. So how long had you been off at that point?
So how I had been off it 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And initially the doctor, they tried giving it to me again, but it just made it worse initially, like right in the acute phase. It was like, no. And then in the psychiatric units, like the first one, no, didn't help. It was the final one, closer to like the 7-month mark, where like something started to, I don't know, but still. And also you can't, I mean, I was also then on getiapine and metazapine, which I had been taking for 2 months at that point, because I'd been forced it every night in the psychiatric ward. So they hadn't actually done anything, obviously, in terms of they hadn't stopped the withdrawal, but I did start to sleep, let's say 5 hours. I would take that at night and I'd be out for about 5 hours, and then I wake up again. But they didn't give me any sort of like actual relief. So, yeah.
Wait, let me add a disclaimer. This is not medical advice. This is Emma's story of what happened to Emma. I just want to make that really clear. Nobody's telling anybody to reinstate at 8 months off. She made this decision for herself under advisement from people that cared about her and her own research and her own family. Okay, I just want to make that clear.
100%. And also, I want to say that to people as well. It's like, because I tried it and it made me so much worse initially. And like when I was trying it again, it was like that, or it was death, like it really was.
This was like life save, like last chance. Like
last chance,
life or death kind of decision.
It wasn't like the initial like withdrawal where you're like, oh, okay. It was like, whoa, I'm in a parallel universe. The universe is crushing me, like nothing is like real.
Right. Right. It's either
So
it's
yeah,
either reinstate or maybe Switzerland. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
actually I did contact them. Yeah. And I was like begging my dad, please, 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 please. But he ended up blocking me in the end.
Yeah. So then what happened? Right away you got better, or like tell me
So
what
like
happened.
I'm in my mum's living room. I take it and then I'm like, I'm in my bed and I'm like, fuck, literally what the fuck? And I walk downstairs and I'm like, Mum, I think that I'm okay. And she's like, what? She's been, dealing with like about 50 ambulances, 3 psychiatric units, like, and she's like, okay. And I got my dog and I just went out for a walk. And then I remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to drop back into it any moment,
Yeah,
any
any
moment.
second. Yeah.
Like this isn't real. And
Yeah.
then I thought, right, okay, I'm going to have to keep taking the 0.5 every day, every morning. I took it in the morning and I just did that. And then a good friend of mine, she was like, I know a great psychiatrist who's actually good. Got in touch with him. He was like, right, okay, I'll prescribe you this, because obviously no one wants to prescribe this drug.
No.
So he was incredibly expensive, but and then I was like, right, got him. And then I just basically was like, I've got to taper off all of this shit. And that was just all I thought about. I was like, every day I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. And like by this point, like most of my friends had obviously completely stepped away. Fair enough, because I wasn't making any sense for months.
Mm-hmm.
And like my family, and yeah, it was just the craziest experience. It just felt like I'd come back from the dead. Like I'd already died. In a lot of people's eyes, I'd already died.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was back. So yeah,
Amazing. But I mean, that also proves you were in severe benzo withdrawal.
right.
And
And
well,
that's
it's to me, even though hearing your story, it's like, this is neurotoxicity. You were getting slammed with drugs right and left. Nobody knows what that does when you're given like 8 drugs in a psychiatric unit while you're in benzo withdrawal. Like, come on.
no one knows. And also it did not help.
No, no,
No,
no.
like definitely did not. There was a point where they waxed up the quetiapine up to about 400 milligram, and like I'm tiny. And I remember that night I went blind, completely blind. I mean, like I cannot even describe them. It was just the whole thing, like so terrifying.
Wow.
And then I remember waking up in the morning, I had to see it again. And I was like,
Wow.
just
So
not
what kind of
okay.
other withdrawal symptoms? Yeah, not okay, not okay, not at all. What other withdrawal symptoms did you think went away? Like, did you have skin burning? All the akathisia was gone, everything.
Yeah. I had like really weird sensory stuff where I could feel like pain, like I felt like burning, and also this weird thing with gravity. I felt like I don't know what happened with gravity, but I felt like I was being crushed and like
Pulled to
weird
the
stuff was going
ground.
on.
Yeah.
Like it was wild.
Wow.
So when I reinstated, pretty much everything stopped and I had no terror. I just sort of sat there and I was like, and I felt pretty numb, like in terms of I couldn't feel like my emotions too much, but I was like, oh my God, akathisia stopped. Like I could sit down um, and just function like a
Yeah.
human,
Yeah.
and think and be like, oh my God, this has been
Wow.
happening. And like,
Wow.
and it just proves, doesn't it, that it was benzo withdrawal and that part of the brain or whatever had, and taking it again, like no matter what else they had given me, it was that made the difference.
Wow.
So
It
yeah,
just it sounds like it brought stability back to your nervous system because it was so dysregulated. And then the Remeron, mirtazapine, and benzo just kind of, you chilled
something
out.
just
Something
made me
happened.
go,
And you got rid of all the other things that they were throwing at you in the psych wards. You were safe at home, trying to
yeah.
get stability. So then once you got stability, like how long did that take? And then when did you start to taper again?
So I think I left it about 3 weeks, and then I started the quetiapine pretty much straight away. Because
Mhm.
weirdly, when I stabilized, when I took the 400 milligrams at night, oh my God, I mean, I felt like I was like melting.
Wow.
So I cut that down like by 100 milligram, I think first, because I think when you're in the
Mhm.
higher dosages, like
Yeah.
you can do that, and it was fine. And when
Yeah.
I got to about 100, that's when I had to stop
It was
because it was
slower.
too much. The symptoms were too heavy, so I paused there,
Mhm.
and then I started the benzo taper.
Wow. So,
Um,
so how are you tapering now? Like, what's your overall
so
plan?
I did the water taper, which is so good. I think, like, for
Yeah.
me, this was like a life changing, just like tiny bit out every day.
Mhm.
I just didn't have, like, I had air hunger, and you're like,
Can't breathe. Yes.
And I had that, and I had some weird like tremors and things like that, but nothing compared to, you know, what was going on. So I'm still on 0.125, and I decided to stay there and then get off the quetiapine. But that's just a personal choice I've made.
Yeah.
Because I know how dependent I am on this drug, and how much like 0.5 brought me back to like from a terrible place.
Yeah.
And I would love to get off the quetiapine because it's quite a heavy drug, and it made my akathisia and everything so much worse. So
When you say
know.
heavy, what does that mean?
Like, for example, I feel like it connects to a lot more receptors than an antidepressant does. And it affects you like in so many ways. Like, it makes me smell like, I don't know, just this like horrible smell. And
Wow.
just when I taper that one, it's just a certain sensation I get, you know, because you just have to listen to yourself, don't you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
And it could be different for somebody else. Like mirtazapine could be, I mean, that's horrendous in itself, to be honest.
Yeah, everybody has their drug that they think is the worst, you know, and it is the worst for them. It's like, I often hear people say like, oh, gabapentin is the worst. And I'm like, but you had just tapered a benzo before the gabapentin. Is it really the gabapentin, or is it you're feeling a benzo withdrawal underneath it? Who knows? I don't know,
You
but
don't know, right?
it's all relative. It's all everybody's drug that they're tapering. It's the worst, you know?
Oh,
yeah.
And I think when you're polydrugged, I think that you really have to like, I've read every single story on the internet. I've been on surviving antidepressants. I've read everything, like, you know, in a compass. I've watched your videos, and then I'm like, right, what decision am I going to make? And in the end of the day, you have to listen to yourself.
Yes.
Think, and like your body and how you respond. And I was like, right, okay, I think this is how I'm going to do it.
That is so important. But let's stop there for a minute, because I really want to talk about this. Often I see people, and I can't fault them. It's not often, but every once in a while, they'll be like, tell me what to do. Who's the expert? They'll pay lots of money to find an expert. And I'll always say, like, you are the expert. Like, you can talk to people, you can hear stories, you're going to have to do all the research, but ultimately it's your decision. And I think the mental health system does us a discredit because we learn not to listen or trust ourselves. It is someone else out there. And I've even seen cases where they went to a group, the group told them to do this or don't do that, and they listened to the group, and then they got worse, and then they blame the group. And I'm like, see, it's still that same lesson. You have to listen to yourself. And to the point, like I say this in my coaching, like, my job is to work myself out of a job. I'm trying to get you back to yourself, empower you to figure out the information for yourself. I'm here as a touchstone, but I am not, you know, an expert to tell you what to do. I'm nobody. I'm just here to help you listen to yourself. That is my job, my only job. So if you ever meet anyone who is not doing that, like a doctor who's not letting you listen to yourself, run.
Yes, 100%. Who are trying to tell you like, no, okay, it's going to be half off next week, half off the week after, then you're off.
Or no, drugs don't do that. No, the drug has left your body. You know, all the things that we've heard, you know, just take this, don't Google about it. Don't read anything, just take it. Like all those things, even naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, you know, they can do the same thing. Take these supplements, take this, take that. You know, I just want to make that really clear. Like that's the biggest lesson I learned out of this whole thing. You cannot give your power away to anyone. Like, this is your body and your decision, and I get to choose what goes in there, you know?
100%. And I think it's so dangerous, and it's such a survival of the warrior in so many ways, because it's like you have to really tune into yourself and ignore everything anyone else is telling you. Like even you say, like in the support groups, like everyone's got a different story, everyone's got a different experience. Like, and I think it's hard because I remember when I was in that state and I was having terror and akathisia, and you're just so desperate, aren't you? You just want someone to help you and give you the answer. But at the end of the day, it's like you've just got to listen to yourself. And
but even that, Emma, this is a serious question, because I'm thinking of people that I'm working with right now, several people. They're in the akathisia state, they're extremely vulnerable to suggestion, they're in extremely high fear, and they read all the scary stories, and they convince themselves they're going to be one of them. They're the worst case there is. So how did you not listen to those stories?
Yes. Well, because I want to, that's the reason I want to tell my story, because I honestly felt like I was the worst. I mean, 3 psychiatric units, like the things that happened, and I'm here I look like I'm not dead anymore. I'm living a life. And like there is that total chance that all those people are going to be absolutely fine. And I think in those moments, it's almost like you have to surrender to it in a way, like, because those suicidal thoughts and those feelings are so there. So there's no way, there's nothing you can do to get rid of them. Like the amount of meditation and the amount of like, yoga, or I mean, I just kept on trying to distract myself as much as I could with like physical things. And even now when I get bad symptoms, when I taper, I'm like, oh, okay, this is feeling bad. I just think of anything I can do to distract myself. Because now I know, but when you're in it, I don't know, it's just kind of like, hold on. Like
hold on for dear life. Yeah. I asked somebody last week, I said, when you were in it and you're pacing and you're screaming to your friend and you're like, I can't do this one more second. I can't do it one more second. I'm like, how did you get to the next second? How did you do that? And he said, honestly, I have no idea. All I can tell you is I was around people that kept me safe until that next moment arrived.
Yes. I think that's it. Like if you're around people that are like, right, she's going through this, let that happen. Don't get any doctors involved. Don't get any hospitals involved. Believe, I think for me, like what could have been amazing was if people had believed me and validated me and been like, and just left me to, I don't know. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because obviously they're really worried as well.
I know.
And they don't know that psychiatric units are like not good places.
It's so tricky. Like, it's so it's even like the fine line between, a loved one who's watching their loved one suffer and they don't know, is this a medical emergency? Do I call a doctor? Who do I call? And sometimes they do, and they learn there's nothing they can do to help them. And then they misinterpret it. I mean, it's so complicated. There's no withdrawal services,
Yes, 100%. So that's wicked.
Dog wants to join. Come on, let's say hi. No. Anyway, okay, so let's go to the next part. Okay, so you stable out, you decide on how to taper, you start tapering. I just have to ask this for my own curiosity, probably an insensitive question, but like, do you have the fear? Do you have fear? Like, I could get worse. Like, how do you manage that?
Oh my God. I mean, I do not know how. I just don't know. I think it's like that will. It's like you might have to make a decision, don't you? Like, I want to live. Number one, I want to live. Before this, I wanted to live a good life. I still want to live a good life. And I do not want to let this. And something in me was like, like,
me too. Me too.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it comes in and you're like, fucking hell. Like, I'm not having this. And even like my friends who didn't believe me, and I was just like, you will, like, whatever. I was like, yes. I'm going to survive this. So as much as I was absolutely terrified, what I would do when I started tapering, I did really experience very bad symptoms because of obviously my history.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist I started to work with, he wasn't so aware of all of this, as they're not. So he was trying to rush me as per usual.
Yeah.
And actually, very serendipitously, I got online and started speaking to a guy, and he gave me details of a woman. I won't give her name because I think she doesn't want to get inundated.
Yes.
But she is very good, and she basically does let me go slow. So I found somebody, and that was really key for me because I'm on these 3 medications. I couldn't go to a doctor and he'd be like, oh, you can just stop that in, this is going to take me years, right. Like, and it has already been like 2 years or however long. So yes, I would basically get really scared when I tapered and I had really bad side effects. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go back because I was so worried that I was going to be left. I was like, surely I can't heal. Surely I can't, because I was so bad then. I dread to think what my nervous system is like at the moment. I was like, how am I going to get off this? You know how people talk about kindling, and like, and I'd done all the wrong things. And I was like, well, there's no hope for me. But the only decision I have is to keep going and to see, and to be like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And I would go online. I would watch your videos. I would watch In a Compass. Like, I loved watching the videos when I was feeling bad because it just made me feel like I wasn't alone. Right. And I was being validated. I think being validated is so healing.
It's huge.
Like, the worst thing is, isn't it? People not believing you. It's like so horrible. Like, I feel like that is damage in itself.
Yes.
And so like, for me, it was the online community. Like, I would just be on my laptop and I'd feel like I was having a stroke, but I would just sit there and I would watch the videos, and that's how I got through those moments. And still to this day, like, any moment I taper and I'm feeling weird, I will go on the online community or speak to people like you know, like friends who you make in this.
Yeah.
Those have been like, yeah.
I did the same thing. I would lay in the bathtub and listen to Bob Whitaker and Peter Gertcha and like Joanna Moncrief in my bathtub. Like, they believe me, they understand, you know.
Right.
It's like water, life water to get through this, you know.
Yeah, and you don't know. The whole time you're like, I don't know. But then I can safely say right now, I'm still on the 3 meds. I've been tapering them slowly, but my body as it is now is like, I don't have any weird sensations. And through doing that slow taper and changing my diet and just a few things that I did, I mean, God knows, I pray every, you know, I do pray. I'm like, thank you.
Please.
And I'm still not off them. So it's like, still, I'm like, this could go, I don't know, but just slowly and just with trust.
Just, and you're kind of coexisting with the fear. It's going to be there, but I got to do this. Like, what else can I do? It's kind of the thing you said so many good things. I could pull on so many things right there, but the uncertainty, like, we don't know. And when we don't know, our brain is going to imagine every worst case scenario. It's going to grab the worst stories and say, that's going to be me. It's going to torture you with that. That's just the nature of the withdrawal brain. Like, it just spins out of control. And it's almost like, it sounds gaslighty, but it's like, I could not believe my own thoughts or my own beliefs. I could not trust it. The only thing I could trust was like, I know that other people have healed from this. I don't even believe in healing myself. I believed Baylissa. Baylissa was the one that was saying, everybody heals. If you don't have to believe it. So I was like, okay, I don't believe it, but Baylissa believes it. So maybe I just need to believe Baylissa. That was it. It was a crumb to get me through, you know? And then, like you said, I'm angry. Like, I got to get through this because if I die, they're going to say I'm just some crazy vet or I'm mentally ill. And that's not what's happening. That is not. So I'm like, I'm going to stay alive, you know, despite the other night we had a tapering support group. And we all cried at the end because there's one person that was really close to the bottom of their taper. And I said, do you understand what you have done? You have gone against what everybody thought about you. You've taken a chance where nobody had walked. You have no support. Your doctors don't believe you, and you are doing it. Like, do you understand how big of a deal this is? You saved your own life.
Yeah.
We all cried about that. So this is not a small thing that, you know, it's understudied, understood. Speaking of, I just watched a BBC documentary. What did you think about it?
So I was very pleased that it came out. Thank God. I did it. The one thing that I didn't like was that they said that it was the minority that get affected by this, and that actually that medication does help a lot of people. Like, at the end, they're like, well, the medication makes, you know, it helps a lot of people. A few, it doesn't. It's not just a few. No, and also it's like, it's inhumane what people go through. Surely just a handful of people is enough. Like, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
How many
one is enough. Like, people are still allergic to peanut butter. Does that mean you give peanuts to everybody and just see, let's just see what happens? No. And you're a perfect example of this though, Emma. You had tinnitus from COVID, probably anxiety about the tinnitus. You're put on it. Nobody told you that. Nobody told you what Professor Nutt said at the end, that you could be affected or they could work for you. We don't really know. You're taking a crapshoot. Nobody told you that. There was no informed consent. Nobody said you could possibly, right? So I thought it was kind of double speak, where you have Professor Moncrief, you have Mark Horowitz, you have Adele Framer. These are all names within the deprescribing world that have been doing this work for 20, 30 years. Okay. They are well entrenched in this world, dealing with patients every day. They give you the full rundown, how the chemical imbalance theory was nothing. It's just a marketing. It sells drugs, and then at the end you say, but the drugs do work. Like, it's just ridiculous. Okay, which one is it? Do they work? Okay, they might work, and I get it. Okay, like, I've met people when I did Medicaid normal screenings. This one woman, I'll never forget her. It was in Boston, Massachusetts. She said, Angie, I have had so much trauma in my life. I have to take these drugs or I will die. I can't deal with the trauma that I've lived. I understand that. That's valid. I get it. That's what she's doing for her. She's making that choice. She understands the risks. She understands withdrawal. She doesn't want to experience that. She wants to stay on them. It helps her stay alive. I get that. But like so they're working for her in that way. That's what she chose. But most of us, it's like, Even if we say they're not working for me, that's evidence of your mental illness. Like, come on, it's crazy making. Anyways.
And also just think, like, to have that risk, like if I had been told, right, sat in the chair, okay, Emma, you can try and take this, but there are a whole load of these people that this happens to, I would be like, I don't want to take it. I don't want to take it. If I knew that this was a possibility, no.
Because, and speaking of which, what has this done to your life and your livelihood?
Oh my God. I mean, I do not know how I've survived, like, and financially, you know, everything gone. And also the fact that I have to pay for the medication now. And I mean, I just don't know. It's like survival of the, I don't know, whatever, like the warrior's journey in so many ways, because you're left disabled. You can't take on a really stressful job whilst you're tapering. That just triggers symptoms. And, you know, I think it was Adele Farmer, she basically had that. She took on a job and then she basically stopped sleeping because of the stress of the job, and it made her withdrawal worse. And like, it's like people don't understand that part of it. It's like you are actually disabled, and because they can't see it, they're like, oh, you know, she's using it as like, you know, she's using all of this now. And there's just, oh God, there's so many layers to it, isn't there?
There is so many. All right. So let's talk about diagnosis. What do you think about your diagnosis? I mean, I don't even know what your diagnosis is. Usually I don't even ask people because it doesn't matter to me. But what is your relationship like to diagnosis now that you've gone through all this?
I just think after all of the psychiatric units and all the different people I saw and all the different, I don't know what you want to call it, you know, things they were going through, I actually am now against diagnosis completely. I think that it's really unfair to say, oh, she's bipolar, she's personality disorder, she's you know, all of the things. I think that actually there's, I don't know, it's such a big spectrum. It's like almost with all the spectrums, like you can't, I don't know, you can just put someone in a little box. And also just with, you know, so many patients I saw in those wards being given all this medication and it wasn't necessarily doing anything, helping them, and it was just giving them bad side effects. I heard that a lot of the patients complaining to the nurses saying like, I don't feel myself. Like horrible side effects with their eyesight, you know, all sorts of things, hearing, and I don't know. And I just think, that they tried to diagnose me, obviously many times. They thought I was anorexic, bipolar, personality disorder, paranoid schizophrenic. I think I had all the diagnosis, like throughout all the wards. And so it just made me realize that they just want to label you, you know.
I was thinking about this last night. I don't know why, but I was laying in bed because I'm just weird, I guess. But I was laying in bed and I was like, how interesting is it? You know, I listen to people's stories all day. And I'm listening to their story, and not once does it occur to me, give them a diagnosis. Like, it's like, no, I'm listening to their story. They're telling me their story. And I was trained as a therapist, so we learned how to diagnose, and I've taken the diagnosis class, and they teach you how to do it. I mean, they give us little paragraphs, you know, like Johnny went to school, he was bullied. He started kicking his teachers and screaming in class, and he couldn't sit down. What is Billy's diagnosis? You know, and it's like one person could read that and say ADHD. Another person could read that and say oppositional defiant disorder. Another person could say he was traumatized by being bullied. There's all these different interpretations, but just think of the way that I did that. I didn't really listen to Billy's story. I am picking out details in your story to put it together and to put it in a box. Like, to me, that removes you from the humanity of the person.
Definitely. Exactly. And then I think maybe for some people it's useful because then it maybe gives them an understanding of what they're going through. But then there's the flip side of that. Then it puts you in a box, and then you are that, you become that. And maybe it can become quite psychological, like, oh, I'm bipolar. Oh, I'm like this, I'm like that. And it, you know, I think we're incredible healers, and it kind of takes that away from us a little bit. Like, we could maybe think outside the box and be like, and heal, you know, whatever's going on, rather than being like in a box for the rest of your life.
Yeah. But no, I did the same thing. I thought, oh, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. That makes sense. Now I understand. It feels like validation. And I would argue I could have got the same amount of validation if someone just said, Angie, you went through something really hard and it affected you. And of course it did. That's the validation I really need, you know? Yes.
Yeah. Someone just listening, like you say, like, you know, someone just listening to your story and just being like, yeah, like, I get it, I understand, I validate it, rather than being like, oh, I think you're this.
Yeah. Or just listen instead of offering something that's not wanted. Just listen, just shut up and listen. Anyway, yeah. So that's diagnosis. All right. So let's talk about your creative pursuits. Tell me about the documentary. Tell me about your Instagram. I saw your photos for Pride. They were beautiful. Like, tell me all about the stuff.
Thank you. Yes. So basically, well, before all of this, I was an actor and I love singing. I love drawing. I'm just all round creator. So I've found it so therapeutic. I just need to get this out of me. And I just decided through this journey to be completely outspoken about it. I thought I've got nothing to lose. I thought I was going to die. So when I was on Instagram, I was posting on my personal Instagram about it the whole time. Even when I was in psychosis, you know, it would have been wild for people to watch. And I had two of very close friends of mine who have a production company. They were like, we really want to make a story out of this. So when I stabilized, I sort of put a story out. They contacted me. And so they started emailing people like Mark Horowitz, Adele, a few others to interview. And they were like, we've got to make a story about this because this is happening and there's loads of other people. And I kind of opened their eyes, which was really nice. So we've been doing that. Most of it's filmed. They've just had a baby, so it's not funded this. So they're just doing it off their own back. And so things have got a bit slow, but we're going to get back on it. And I can't wait for that to be done because it's sort of told they're very creative, these two. They do kind of like, I don't want to say quirky kind of films. And
like
so
avant-garde or something.
Like, I think it will be told in a not a very conventional documentary way, which I think will be quite good. Like we want to make people really feel maybe what it's like to go through withdrawal, like a visceral like sense of it. Like this is how bad it is, you know. So I'm very excited for that. So I'm hoping this year we'll get like an edit done, and we wanted to get it out to like festivals, so documentary festivals, and you know, just the more.
I could help you with that if you need help. I know a little bit about that. That's funny. A lot. We did 15 film festivals in the United States and abroad. We did one in France. I don't think we did UK. One in Australia, I think.
That's so cool. That would be
we did that. We did all that stuff. It's intense to be a public figure, Emma. You have to be careful. Really? It opens you up to lots of really bad comments. You'll see. You haven't experienced that on YouTube yet? You haven't experienced?
I have had a few people, you know, people have all sorts of opinions about
they sure do, about your life.
And so gosh, I could imagine.
So if you ever need anybody to talk to about that, I'm the one.
Okay, I'll be coming to you.
Very hard. It's very hard. Oh gosh. Okay, anyway, we're way off track. Okay, so what are the plans for the future besides the documentary? While you're taping, are you just going to keep documenting like what's happening?
Yeah, so I'm going to keep documenting it. I wrote a song about what happened to me, and that is like a dark comedy sort of thing. I filmed most of it, but I wanted to film a bit more here. I'm going to post that on YouTube because I think it's such a dark, heavy subject. But if I can reach people through comedy, well, not comedy, but like dark comedy, like in different ways of reaching people, isn't there? I think when people hear the word medication, they're like, oh, they switch off immediately.
It's true.
They're just, and I probably would have as well, you know, like I don't know anything, you know, I didn't know anything. Now I do. I know loads, but so yeah, I'm just kind of getting it out of me, and I just I'm going to keep talking about it and keep just anything that I can think of to try and like bring awareness. When we have the edit of the documentary, I'll send it to you. You know, like before we, you know, see what you think.
I'll give you my critical eye. I've seen lots of films that were really bad at film festivals.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, but this is two things I want to say. One is, you know, I feel like it's a danger that when we document our journeys, because it can be kind of voyeuristic or, you know, people don't misunderstand you, that what you're trying to do. However, like for me, at least, this was my experience. When they asked me to be in the film Medicating Normal, I was like, I can't do it. No. Because I had already been in 3 documentaries, something like that, and a bunch of commercials and stuff. And so I already knew what it was like to have cameras around your house and your face. And I was like, you can't watch me do this. No way. I don't even think I'm going to live. But they kind of talked me into it. And then I thought, like now I can't die because like, I don't want to be in this film. And they say, oh, Angela is such a wonderful person, but she died by suicide at the end. So in a way, it's kind of saved me, you know, because they would come back every 6 months. So I was like, okay, I got to make it 6 months. I got to make it 6 months. I got to make it 6 months. So in a way, I think even maybe for you, this is going to be more important than ever, that you have something that keeps you going. You have some reason.
That's such a good point.
Like you're using your suffering for something.
Yeah. And I think when you go through this, like you say, like it's a long journey. Like I'm still tapering. I still go through the suffering now. And it's like, I need a way. I need something to like hold on to. Like, I can't just go through this without not saying something about it as well. It's like, got to let it out.
Yeah,
Because it's just such a heavy thing to go through, isn't it?
it
Got to,
is.
like you say, the voyeurism. And sometimes I'm like, I did have some early videos of when I was in the withdrawal that I took down, because I was like, oh God, like I don't want people judge,
Yeah.
and don't they? And they're like, oh, she's clearly not quite right, or she's got something wrong with her. And like, you know, I don't want that. I want people to take me seriously and like actually take this seriously. So I'm trying to do it in that like angle.
Good point. I like that. Not to like
Yeah.
make fun of you, or that's so true. But also the other point I wanted to make was art does change people's hearts. Like I saw it in real life, when an audience would sit down to watch Medicating Normal, the film would come on. There was these moments of, you know, moving you. They would make the audience cry. You can't deny a person's lived experience. You just can't. There's nothing you can do. So even like the silly little parts of Medicaid Normal where there's a sprinkler and it's going around in a circle and it's like tick, 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 you know, that brevity, like that pause, it was very heavy. And then, you know, Alan Francis saying something about, these drugs have been marketed, you know, everybody's mentally ill now. It's not even, you know, anybody who reads the book, you're just mentally ill. But then me laughing, saying the F word right after that scene made everybody laugh. But it was like, you could see art is not good. How do I say this? Hold on. Art is not effective unless it changes a person's nervous system. Like that's what it does. It has to move you somehow, you know? So I feel like that's where, like, BBC documentary was very dry, very matter of fact. There were some patient stories in there, but when you have art and it's impactful, it does change people's minds about things. It just does. And in a way that other things cannot.
Yeah. Like, you know, when you're like going to see a good film or like a good piece of theatre and you're like, oh, like, I don't know, for me being an actor, like that's the reason why I became an actor, because I was so like affected by art. And I found it so moving. And like, I've gone through my own, like even before the meds, my own traumas and my own things I had to work through without medication. And like, yeah, I just found that art was the thing that helped me through all of that.
Amazing.
That is why I'm like, okay. And the song I've written is really hilarious. It's called I'm Not Dead.
Can you sing it? Or where is it? Can you sing it?
So I'm singing in it.
Okay.
And at the moment I'm basically piecing it together because I've filmed like, you know, some stuff to go with it. And it'll be finished soon.
Awesome. Oh, speaking of that, your video project. Do you want to ask about the videos?
Oh, the video project.
Do you remember the one where you asked me to film myself saying something?
Yes.
Do you want
God,
to
yes,
do that? Yeah, talk about that. Tell everybody.
So basically, I've asked people to send me a video of them, horizontal, good light, good sound, just listing listing your symptoms. And you can introduce yourself, you can not introduce yourself, you can say how long, what medication, how long you were on it for, you know, if you tapered, if you cold turkeyed, and then, you know, how long maybe you've been suffering, and then list some symptoms. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a montage. And by that, I mean like edit each person one after the other, so that the whole thing, you'll be watching it being like, oh my God, like there's so many people this has happened to. Like that's the feeling I want to get from it. And I was going to put that in the documentary, 100% that will go in. We'll make it like a whole screen of people, you know, like zoom out and there's like all these people talking. And then also for my song, to put it at the end. So the song will finish and then it will just be left with people listing their symptoms. Nice. Because it's just like, I remember seeing like a similar thing when I was going through withdrawal. And for me, that really helped, again, the validation, because it's like, this happens to a lot of people. It's not the minority, like no. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you. That's cool. And where do people send them?
Oh, yes. So beatingthebenzos@gmail.com. And that's benzos with an S.
Okay, perfect. Got it. Perfect. Okay. And then last thing I want to ask, while you're tapering, are you feeling symptoms? Like, how do you feel the cuts? Like, how's the taper going?
So at the moment I'm tapering the quetiapine. I've decided to stay on this tiny bit of benzo. Who knows if it's doing anything, who knows if it's not, but that's just been my personal decision, which is weird because I'm now traveling with like literally like a bag full of medication and syringes and scales. And So yeah, like I'm tapering that at the moment. And actually, when I was tapering it a year ago, the quetiapine, I would get these feelings I was having a stroke, all sorts of, I couldn't do anything. But
Mhm.
this time I've been on less of the benzo, slowly water tapering off that. And I'm managing to taper 10% a month, and I haven't experienced anything so far.
So what are you down to now?
So I was on 100, I'm almost on 50.
Perfect. Wow.
And yeah, like just wild. I couldn't even move it like 5%. So again, that proves that, we are healing. I think the body really does want to heal.
Mhm.
And maybe, yeah, I mean, that long hold seemed to help for me personally. So that's what I'm doing. But sometimes
Yeah.
I do think I'm traveling, like it does make me worry. I have moments where I'm like, God, am I going to suddenly, I'm in another country, and am I going to have a moment?
Yeah. Just the what if thought. It's a what if thought. That means it's anxiety.
Yeah,
It's throwing you into the future.
what
It's
is?
not present.
Oh my
Stay
God.
here. Stay here.
Yeah. And
You're
then I'm like,
fine.
no, Emma, it's fine. Go have some food, go walk your dog, just,
Yeah, you're fine. Okay, one question from the audience. They asked about, can you ask one more time? Did she say to email it or go to her website?
So if you could email it,
What's your
beating
email?
at gmail.com. And you can use WeTransfer, which is on Google. WeTransfer is great for transferring like big files if it doesn't go into the email, like the video. Or you can go to my website and you can do it through there. There's like a little contact thing.
Perfect. All right, cool. Anything you want to leave? Let's leave the audience with hope. I always like to end on hope.
Yes.
So
Well, basically, I just think the reason that I'm here, I'm alive, and I went through all of that. I read all the worst stories. I thought I was going to die. Went through 3 psychiatric units. Like, I just think that I'm proof of healing, and the fact that it is the drug, it's not you. So like everyone who's going through this and they're like, I'm crazy, I've lost myself. Like I was always there underneath, like literally just like holding on. And that's what I say, like you are there holding on, like 100%.
I always say the blue sky is there. There's just clouds. It doesn't
Yeah.
change. The sky is still there.
You're there. You're still there. You haven't gone.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Emma. Any closing thoughts before we end? It's beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for living, and thank you for fighting, and just, I'm proud of you.
Oh, you too. It's like the strength,
Yeah,
it's just on another level.
it is the human
It
resilience,
feels
the
like
human
a
spirit.
kind of serendipitous thing to have come around to you 360.
Amazing. 7 years later.
Yeah.
So much has happened. Oh my God. Well, keep going. I'm here if you need me. Just, I can't wait to see more content. I'll be sharing it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Amazing.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, if you could just like it, follow my Facebook page, like the YouTube, whatever feels appropriate for you. Thank you so much for attending. And next month we have, let me tell you, oh my God, you ready to hear it? You're going to hear this first. We have Geraldine Burns, we have Adele Framer, and we have Ann Guy next month. And I'm trying to get John Reed, but he hasn't answered me yet. We'll see. But that's next month. So this was lived experience month. Next month is going to be expert kind of. Nobody's an expert, but the more professionalized people in the deprescribing movement. All right. Awesome. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you, Emma. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.